What is going on, everybody? We are back once again with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Believe it or not, we are all the way on the road to WrestleMania. We are fresh off Revolution. We are fresh off of another Monday Night Raw with big announcements, big stuff going on. I'm going to need a wicked crew to talk about all of this with today. And first, we've got a return, a huge return, all the way out in Philly. We've got a good friend of mine, Josh Markowitz, is back. How have you been, my friend?
What's up, Clark? What's up, everybody? Dude, I've been great. I took a little absence from the broadcast to really get in the ring and start training in pro wrestling. And now that I've kind of gotten out of that new phase of doing that, I'm now doing both. So I am so pumped to just talk Monday Night Raw, talk wrestling again with the Wrestling Republic daily broadcast. And I'm just excited to get back into it. Thanks for having me.
I could not be more stoked myself. And the craziest part is, so you make your return. We've got two up-and-coming pro wrestlers, two people in wrestling school. And we've got a debut today on the same day as your return. No Thunder being still in here. We're bringing the Thunder out of both places, but I'm going to have to hop across the pond to my good friend Jordy and introduce him to all of y'all, because this is going to be an awesome addition to the show. And it's awesome to have you, Jordy. How have you been?
Hello, everyone. It is lovely to be here, Clark. I've met you once, Josh, first time meeting yourself and everybody in the comments. I'm sure we're all going to get to know each other very, very well. Like Clark said, yeah, I've dabbled in the ring a little bit myself, just started training. And yeah, I'm here to talk everything wrestling, everything WWE, Raw, particularly for this episode. And I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. I'm fired up myself. We've already got a ton of comments. Let's get into a few of those before we get started. We got Briggs _08 Philly reppin'. Shout out Josh on that one for sure. Over on Instagram, we have I am Jay Skeet with any meaning y'all think behind the L. The Rock throws up. Interesting. I was thinking either broken thumb or maybe Bullet Club reference. I don't know. Maybe a little hint, something in the future. Not totally sure, but I do love little hints. Absolutely. We've also got Shad, our good friend Shad, the Tuesday Night Delight, who we'll see tonight over on Off the Air with Jordy. What up, my fellow Tiffany Stratton truther? Absolutely. Shad also shouted out Philly as well with Josh. We've got a ton of good stuff. This is going to be a fun show, guys. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about last night's Monday Night Raw. Let's talk about Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. What do we want to talk about? It's Seth and Cody. We are really on the road to WrestleMania after last night. Josh, I got to ask you your thoughts on everything that went down with Seth and Cody last night.
Yeah, I mean, look, this was one of those segments that went on 20 plus minutes, but I loved absolutely every single second of it. I mean, they're building for maybe what I think is the most star-studded match in the history of this company. So please take all the time you need to build this match. And I think, it went without saying that obviously, Cody and Seth were going to accept the invitation to come this upcoming Friday to make that match probably official for the tag team match. And it's just such a cool build. I enjoyed every part of the segment. And I mean, I am curious to see what you guys think about this whole diarrhea Twain kind of thing. Yeah. I think it's catchy. I enjoy it. There's mixed opinions online. I think it's something that the fans are going to get behind, and something that, I hope the fans are going to go nuts about this Friday. And I also think it's cool that, real quick, that they're kind of taking shots, Cody and Seth, at The Rock for not being cool anymore, because, The Rock's entire personality is that he is the coolest guy in the room, but maybe not anymore. Cody and Seth are really proven that. And I mean, this is going to lead to fans booing The Rock even more, which is what they want. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this continues to build.
I am too. And you've got him wearing kind of the knockoffs of the $500 shirt. You have the diarrhea Dwayne line. I think this was actually really well done. The only thing that bugs me about this is that the entire story encompassing both world titles has eaten up the main event scene. And that's just something that I've kind of struggled with along the way. This segment in particular, I enjoyed more than some of the other ones that we've had so far. Jordy, I got to get your thoughts on it, though. How did you feel about it? I mean, Seth was dressed like an electric banana, wasn't he?
Yeah, man. I think Pat McAfee said that he was dressed like a highlighter, and I think it was probably and he's probably leaning into the fact that The Rock a few times. I mean, a few times is probably an understatement. Called him a walking clown emoji on Friday Night SmackDown. Just going back to the shirts just for a quick second, and I know this is about Raw. Did anybody else notice that The Rock could not undo his shirt sleeve coming out for his
Fascinating.
I don't know why. Obviously, he likes to show his goosebumps. Maybe he had some notes written there, and he actually had some maybe he had some other names to call Seth, but he couldn't actually get to them. But no, I think the segment was good. The diarrhea Dwayne thing, I think I was kind of taken back. I didn't like it at first. However, when the fans did start chanting diarrhea, I kind of liked it at that point. And when he kind of justified it, saying anything that's come out of The Rock's mouth has been baby poo, then it kind of made me laugh a little bit. But in terms of, like you said, Clark, in terms of taking something away from the main event picture, I agree. But one thing I will say that did happen last night, I like that they've kind of leaned into it. With the whole Drew thing, especially he's actually started bringing it up, saying, "Look, like your priorities aren't right. You should be focusing on fighting me." I kind of like that they're acknowledging that, like, name drop, obviously, but in a different sense now and actually showing it on screen, because I just feel like the Seth and Drew match needs more behind it. Maybe it's because we've seen it a couple of times already. And don't get me wrong, I want Drew in that match, 100%. I wanted Drew to win the chamber. It's not that I didn't. I want more substance behind it, because I know how much both of these two can give, and it is being maybe slightly overshadowed by what could be the biggest tag match of all time at WrestleMania in terms of star power, at least.
That's the hard part, is I don't see a scenario where that tag match doesn't main event night one.
No.
And that's where I'm, and I've made the serious claim. I'm nervous about it. Card is always subject to change. I get that. But if you lose Cody or Roman for what is supposed to be night 2, that is a disaster.
Yeah.
That is a nightmare. And so that scares me. I understand they're pros, and both totally durable. We've talked about recently this week. Cody obviously wrestled with a torn pec. For sure, it is possible, but what do you do on Monday if that's the case? I'm not saying he's going to tear his pec again. What do you do on Monday if it's Roman? What do you do on Monday if it's Cody? What do you do on Sunday if it's Seth? And one of the biggest messages from last night's promo was about being 100% cleared, which is a huge deal. 100% cleared, though, does not mean 100% healthy. And those are two different things. And I just proceed with caution on that one. The match, I think, for moment's sake, will be all time, but it's just hard to go all out if this is going to be the main event night one, with the same 4 that need very much to have a presence merely 24 hours later. That just is a lot to ask. I would ask both of you guys, what do you have happen in the tag match? Let's go with that early prediction. Josh, I'll ask you first. Who goes over in the tag match?
It's tough because you got 3 of those guys are going to perform the next night. So it's tough to see, who wins, who loses. I mean, I think you could have Dwayne and The Rock and Roman lose, and then maybe set up that between an angle between The Rock versus Roman. One of them blames the other one. Or you could have, that Cody loses, even like something like Roman pins Cody, and then Cody's at the all-time lowest, and then he comes back, he defies the odds the next night and wins against Roman. It really could go either way. I honestly don't even know how to think about it, but either way, it's going to be an unbelievable match. And I do also want to take to that point, like the injuries, like these guys got to do it again the next night, just as hard, if not harder. It's night 2, main event, co-main event. I am, a little bit scared. I don't think injuries happen that often, but it's possible. It's professional wrestling. It happens. I do think, however, though, that the kind of wrestlers that are wrestling, maybe besides Rollins, they don't do any crazy spots to the point where I'm like,
Right.
whoa, calm down, you have a match tomorrow night. I do think they can put on a match that's still really, really good quality wise, but also be safe about it and choose their spots correctly. So then, they'll be safe for the next night, but still put on a good match.
Absolutely. I love that opinion for sure. Coach 23 also added, how about that subtle L that Seth did? Hey, maybe that is a thing. Maybe the Bullet Club thing is a thing. Who knows? I don't know, right? He did do that, and he did a little bit of that after the Rumble win. It's a funky one. Jordy, I got to ask you same question, though, as far as your pick for what goes down in the tag match night one.
I think I don't see a scenario where Cody and Seth win. I can't. The word doubt is something that kind of I've heard Cody throw around. I've heard quite a lot of higher ups within WWE throw around quite often. They like to put the doubt into the fans, because when the fans have got the doubt and then it gets overturned, that's when you get these amazing moments. Right now, I still think quite a lot of people are kind of convinced that Cody will finish his story at Mania. Maybe they'll do some kind of kayfabe injury, and they'll end it that way. They'll end Cody getting stretchered out, limping off, something kind of along that lines that really puts that, oh, I didn't think it was gonna go down like this, that doubt into us. So yeah, and the thing is as well, obviously, when you've got people these big within this match, you put it as the main, and I get it. You put it as the main event of night one of Mania. I 100% get that. But there's a little bit of me that still feels that main event should probably be going to somebody else. And that's where I'm just like, I love that this match will happen.
Yeah.
I struggle to it's still what's happened, what everybody was so outraged about that was happening to Cody. They wasn't going to finish his story. The Rock was going to come in and steal the main event. The actual fact is, if that happened, that is still going to happen to perhaps Bayley, perhaps Drew and Seth, who could have main evented night one. So I just think I don't know. That's a different question, I guess, on who's going to actually go over. But yeah, it's still quite a funny one for me, and I've got no doubt as of Friday when we actually see them all in the ring together. I will completely change my mind on everything I've just said. I'll be so excited to see this match go down. I think just the softy in me just feels a little bit sometimes for them superstars that have been working year round, and The Rock still has been around. And I love The Rock, don't get me wrong. I was such a Rock fan growing up. I always have been. Even when he came back with the whole Cena thing. It's just a little bit of what CM Punk got annoyed about all them years ago. It still might happen. He's taking the main event from someone.
Never know, right? That is a great point. And it's funny because I'm a huge Rock fan too, right? Like growing up in the 90s, it's hard not to be. And even it's funny because in hindsight, you would assume everybody that grew up, and you're around my age too, Jordy. Everyone that grew up in our era is a diehard Rock fan, but my memories are actually rooting against The Rock. I became a Rock fan after, as a true fan, on nostalgia, right? I was for Austin against The Rock.
Yeah.
Almost every time. There were certain scenarios, Rock Triple H, right? Certain spots there. But like I was for Goldberg against The Rock. Very much, right? Borderline, I was for Brock against The Rock at that time. Dare I say. Now, that's neither here nor there. It's an interesting path here that we've taken. It's cool because one thing I will say positively is they're not doing a copycat Danielson story here.
Absolutely.
With Cody. And that I don't want.
100% agree, yeah.
That is exactly what I don't want. It doesn't feel like that, so I'm excited about that part of it. Let's move on to our next topic, though. Let's talk about the Intercontinental title picture. Let's talk about Dom Mysterio and Gunther. I mean, I get it that Dom has monster heat. Gunther has heat. What was going to happen besides... And I like the Boston Crab, I guess, because it's an old school wrestling move. Josh, why did we do this? What are we doing here?
You know, it's you bring up a good point. You know, you got two guys that got major heat on them. My only, thought about it is let's give the guy that's got the most heat in years and just give him even more heat by giving a guy who already has a lot of heat, just absolutely destroy him. And I actually loved it. So, I mean, I'm a big Gunter fan, but I mean, my biggest takeaway from the match was like I was hyped that they were cheering for Gunter. And obviously, occasionally, they cheer for him because he's just a great wrestler, and they love how hard his chops are and all of his old style moves, whatever. But whenever you're wrestling Dominic, you're going to be treated like the face, nonetheless, of the match. And Gunter like picking up Dominic, like even after already destroying him, just to give him more punishment, like just kind of gave like that other sense of like, okay, this is how evil Gunter can be. I will say, however, when I watched like Dominic kind of like dead on the floor, and then Gunter picks him back up and starts attacking him, like that seems like that seems like a way that Gunter could potentially lose in the future. Obviously not last night, but like something like that where he's arrogant, he's cocky, he thinks he has the match won. Oh, roll up, something like that. Could definitely happen in the future. And after watching that last night, I was like, wow, okay, that really could happen. Something like that would be a way Gunter could lose, just like an easy thing like that. It was a fun match, and getting to see like the biggest heel get destroyed was something everyone loves to see, I think, especially when it's Dominic, and I
Yeah.
think it was fun to hear the crowd cheer for Gunter a bit while he was chopping Dominic, because the fans just hate Dom, and whenever the crowd cheers for Ultimate Punishment, it's hilarious.
I totally agree, and that's where I mean I like briefly made a joke about the Boston Crab finish, and Coach 23 added that Gunther is so special and talented that he doesn't really have only one finisher. He can use a simple basic move as a finisher. That's one of my favorite things about Gunther. That's Brian Danielson. I see that in him. I see that in I mean, honestly, you got to give Jericho credit where he deserves it. Jericho can finish a match in a lot of different ways. And I think that's important. I think it's cool. My only issue with this one with the Boston Crab is, so for example, I think what Gunther has done with the chops, he's the only guy that they don't woo for when they chop.
Yeah,
He's the
that's great.
only guy. They're so loud. The crowd doesn't flare woo them. It's his version of the chop.
Yeah,
And what I don't want us to end up is in a place where Gunther is now a babyface and it doesn't fit only temporarily because of the steam on Dominic in the
right.
long run. It's fun as a one off in my eyes, for sure. Right. But just one of those things that Gunther should be the dominant heel that everyone's gunning at, not beating up the slimy guy so that we can cheer for him. As
Yeah,
much as it was fun to see him just get cut in half with those chops, right? Like he caved his
Yeah.
sternum in.
Yeah, it was the noise, man, and the way that he moved off them. He like backflipped, man. It was
Yes,
great. It was
he's an
great.
absolute audio guy.
Yeah.
It's like it's just loud and it's awesome.
yeah,
Let's move on though to our next topic. Let's talk Nia Jax and let's talk Becky Lynch. It's been a while. It's been a while since Nia broke Becky's nose.
Yeah.
But people don't forget. People don't forget. We finally get it. Nia goes over by DQ. Okay. But how does she factor into the Mania direction? I don't know if she does, but I don't mind it either because we still have an open door to finish. Speaking of finishing stories, to finish the Nia and Becky story, given that broken nose, Jordy, I got to ask you about it.
Yeah, no, the more I see these two in the ring together, and this could be well a credit to Becky, but I see and think how much Nia has come on since her time back. The match last night, they had a match, I can't remember off the top of my head, but not too long ago. And that again was another really, really solid match. They've got a good pace. Nia hit a stink face, which I'm always for.
Cracks me up.
And Nia's leg drop off that middle rope, it was great.
So good.
It was such a good match. And like you say, that story to me, it isn't fully wrapped up because Becky hasn't beat Nia. And again, when you're speaking of finishing stories, I was kind of expecting Becky to pick up the win, picking up momentum to go against Rhea, and completely didn't even think about Liv Morgan coming back in and getting revenge for what had happened last week.
Yeah.
So that, I guess, is a credit to Becky and Nia, because I'm usually pretty switched on or think about these things coming and analytical about it. But I was caught up in the match. I didn't, when Liv turned up, I was like, what? Well, oh, right. Yeah, of course Liv's here. But no, yeah, it was good. And now, talking about the Mania picture, obviously it's set up a match for Becky and Liv next week. Is surely Nia's going to get involved in that, right?
Got to. Has
so now
to.
I'm wondering, like, Liv, obviously Nia's got probably unfinished business with Rhea because she beat her. Liv and Rhea have got the history, and Liv wanted to win the chamber to go and get her revenge on Rhea. Becky and Rhea are doing this thing where they square off every now and again, and obviously they've got the match locked in for Mania, but there seems to be 4 people floating around when it should only be 2, and I'm not mad about it, because I was kind of thinking, right, okay, now we know it's Becky and Rhea, what we're doing up until that point, because as much as I love those 2, and I know they can build, that match almost doesn't need a build. Like, just show me it. Like,
put it on a poster.
Yeah, put it on a poster. I'm sold. Like, that's going to be an amazing match. I don't even need to see a promo, because I know how good of a show them 2 will put on together. But when you throw Liv and Nia into the picture, who I like as well, and I think deserve some kind of spot at Mania, it's tricky, mate. It is tricky. It'll be interesting. I think after we see this Becky and Liv match next week, it'll give me more of a kind of concrete direction on which way it's going to go. But right now, I don't know. It could it end up as a triple threat? Is Liv going to go against Nia? Is it going to be Liv versus Rhea and Becky against Nia? I don't know.
It's fascinating to me too, because in some ways there's parallels to the Bloodline story we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
Like, you could almost do a tag team match and mess with like night 1 and then mess around with the other one night 2. That's not going to happen, but like, it does seem, based on where we're at currently, that would make a semblance of sense. Coach 23 added they can do a 4-way between Rhea, Becky, and Nia and Liv at Backlash, not at Mania. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Nia can win the women's battle royal. That would be a good one too.
True.
And then Shot added, guessing the story is Becky versus the world building up to Rhea. I think so too, but I would, if that's going to be the case, Rhea Ripley's going to be the heel in this one, and we're going to maybe get the man Becky Lynch back. I would rather see the Savage Ripley taking out Becky. And this is one issue I've had with the Judgment Day. She feels like the leader of the Judgment Day, but she's not going to sick the male members of the Judgment Day on Becky Lynch. So there's no numbers advantage there for her in that group. And as much as she is a heel in some ways, it's hard to root against Ripley. She's the coolest one in the group. She is. And that's the only caveat I have when it comes to the entire storyline. Now, really quickly, I've got a fun thing to say. If you were watching yesterday's show, you heard the big announcement: Mania tickets on the line from our partners over at Next Level. Go to nxconnect.me, not / regular / Wrestling Republic, to see all of our content across all platforms in the same place. Easy link tree, easy access, fun for all involved. Oh yeah, and you might end up in Philly at a tailgate with a bunch of superstars. 2 tickets to a night of Mania, 2 tickets to Raw, free hotel. Did you hear about the car rides to the event too? Go check it out. Go sign up. It's 4 simple steps. Post the stuff. It's going to be outstanding. Leona Kita 6753 said he wants to join the universe, the WWE universe. Yes, you're welcome to. This is an easy route. Win the contest. Your auto involvement in the WWE universe. You're in, I would say, as far as I'm concerned. And with that, though, we got to move on. Let's keep talking about Monday Night Raw last night. And speaking of Monday Night Raw last night, El Idolo is back. Andrade as El Idolo, no less. No less. Against Apollo Crews, who I've been missing for a long time. Let's not forget, this dude had an Intercontinental title match at Mania merely a couple years ago against Big E. That was a big deal. He won. He went over on Big E at Mania before Big E's title run. WWE title run, that is. I've always been a huge fan of Apollo. You do not find athletes like Apollo Crews. And I think he does have charisma. He's been put in spots that are difficult. That's not what last night's match was about. Last night's match was about Andrade going over with that hammerlock DDT. But Josh, I got to ask you, Andrade's back. Crowd didn't necessarily love him.
Yeah, I'm with you there with the crowd didn't necessarily love him. I love him though. I'll say
I do too.
I love him. Thankfully they gave him his gimmick. He needs his gimmick. I love the mask. The presentation is done so well. I think it's been done so well so far. The elegant suits, the sunglasses, the cockiness, everything else is just so great. And I do agree the crowd wasn't so hot for him, but then again, they gave him, a 3-minute match against, and I love Apollo Crews, but against a guy that, we haven't seen that much. So, I think if you want the crowd to get hot for this guy, you need to give him maybe a more suitable opponent, maybe, put a stipulation, give them more than 3 minutes. I understand they're putting him over. It was sort of like a squash match, excuse me. But yeah, I think the crowd will be into him by the time, Mania season we're in Mania season by the time Mania rolls around and so on. He's a great performer. He can get over very easily. And I think just kind of looking at the way his presentation's been done, I do think a lot of people in AEW are looking at this because look, we've seen the way that WWE is presenting these former AEW superstars that are coming back. So just something to look out for, the way that WWE has been, so far presenting these former guys that came from AEW to WWE. Just something to look out for. I'm sure some people in AEW maybe, keep it on the radar for that. But look, Apollo is, he's not used that much in WWE TV, and I love him. Even after last night's match, I went back to like some NXT takeovers and watched some of his match because he's great. He's so athletic, just like you said, such a great performer. And I do agree. I think he has charisma as well. But it was a 3-minute match. There wasn't much to it. The hammerlock DDT is always great, but I do think it was an okay first step to building momentum for his run. I think there's definitely a United States Championship or an Intercontinental Championship reign in his future. I think there's got to be. He's a great performer. He's going to get over nonetheless, despite the crowd last night. Maybe. Do I think the match could have gone a different way? Yes. But I still think it was an okay build to his momentum to start.
I don't mind it at all. I agree with you. It is fine. Now we got a comment over here on Instagram from TJ Hothead. I feel Andrade's return should have been the Monday after Raw and have him attack the world heavyweight champion. Let's swing hard with him. That makes a lot of sense to me too.
Yeah.
Now that if you want to push him that hard, yes, I would love it. I think all of us would be in agreement that we would love it. That just, it doesn't seem to be in the cards is the only issue there.
No.
We've got to stack the top of that division. And not only that, the guy at the top of it is involved in 2 storylines.
Yeah.
So that's where we're in a little bit of trouble there. We've got a few more comments over here on YouTube. We've got, Shot adding the Apollo went from beating Big E at Mania. It's crazy to being jobbed out. Crazy how stuff happens.
See, this is the thing with using Apollo. This is something that I think is that they've probably been mindful of when actually booking it. Is if they wanted to give him full-on squash matches, look at what they're doing with Braun on SmackDown, and they're bringing people up from NXT, and he's murdering them.
Great point.
In a minute, they bring out Apollo Crews, who we as fans know. He isn't a jobber. He's got more. Look at the size of him, the athletic build of him, and he gets rid of him in 3 minutes. Yeah. So I think it maybe is more of a sign of not a slight at Apollo. It's more of a, this is what we think, and this is the direction that we're going with. Maybe a potential Gunther challenger. And the little thing with Dominic, look, there was there was a little high five, and Dominic said he might be good for us. Does he fit into the Judgment Day? Only to butt heads with Priest, surely. Like I don't know how it would work really.
This is where it's funny to me because the Tom and Nick Mysterio stuff, like I love comedy. I got a little bit of background in stand up. I could not be laughing harder. But the problem is there isn't Tom and Nick to pay that off. Right. So like at this point, like the joke is great, but there is only Dominic, right? It's not actually Tom and Nick to somehow pay this off unless Truth gets confused and finds a tag team that he believes are Tom and Nick Mysterio. I don't know.
Never know without Truth, man.
You never know. I'm hoping for something like that. Okay, let's move on to our second to last topic of the evening, though. Afternoon, depends on where you are geographically here, but let's talk about Ivar and Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, to me, we've talked about underutilized. It's not the theme of the show intentionally, but dang it, this guy main evented night one of WrestleMania last year, and yes, it was him and Kevin Owens, but this was about Sami Zayn. What he did on the Elimination Chamber build, the guy was as over as anyone. You don't have a bigger babyface than Sami was last year at that time. And he's just been shuffled to the middle of the deck. Now, if he's going to be the guy to take that belt off of Gunther, I'm actually for that. But it's got to be one-on-one. He's got to actually overcome someone. I don't want to see it in a four-way match. I don't mind multiple people in a match with Gunther if that's what it comes down to, but I want if it's Sami to take the belt off Gunther, I want him to do it for real. Like climb the mountain, climb the hill, beat the big bad guy, right? Like finish the game.
Do that thing when he stumbles to the corner, so he's just about to hit that haluva kick, and he looks like that's all he's got left in him is to do that run.
Exactly. The match last night was awesome. Ivar in singles competition is, dude, oh my God. What in the world?
So good.
Insane.
How did I not know? Because I've always loved the Viking Raiders, whatever you want to call them, as a tag team. I didn't realize Ivar was arguably the better athlete of the two.
Like, I was taking a couple of notes because I knew that I was talking about this and it was my first time. And one of my notes was just, what is Ivar? Like, how does the man move like that? He goes, every time I see him, he impresses me. Like you said, this singles run he's been on, it's one of them things that is an accident. It's not something you ever wish for your partner to get injured, but I think it's gonna hugely benefit him. Like hugely benefit him. I think anybody that's watched any of his matches can now see that the talent that he is. I thought last night as well, putting the antlers on Michael Cole. Just a quick shout out for that when Valhalla did that. I thought that was hilarious. But no, he's great, and it kind of does beg the question: why is he not in that gauntlet? Like, I don't understand why. Maybe Ivar's closer to coming back than we thought. Maybe there's a potential tag run in there for them, because I could see them beating the Judgment Day. I think, just because of the sheer size of them and stuff. But in terms of the match itself, Sami won. I would have been shocked if Sami didn't win, and it was a case of building momentum. Bronson out at the end, obviously came, hit him with a tsunami, left him in the ring, and kind of sent a message to the other five in that gauntlet. At this time, I was kind of thinking to myself, and this isn't so much about the match, I was thinking, where does Chad Gable fit into this? Because yes, Clark, I 100% agree with everything you said about Sami, but it doesn't make my heart not want Chad Gable to win that belt. I'm so stuck in between those two, and it's not because it's a genuine, like, I'm an 8-year-old again. I love them both so much, and I just want them to win. And it's not like, oh, I think this one's better. I just want them both to win, and I want Sami to have a moment at Mania, because he said in an interview a couple of weeks ago where he said he wants to do something that's never been done before. And instantly, you kind of think, well, what's not been done? Nobody's beaten Gunther, really. That's your path now. But people are mentioning a potential triple threat with Gable, Zayn, and Gunther, and I personally don't see that working. I think it would be an incredible match. The talent of them three would be incredible, but I don't how because people. I don't know how I'd feel about it. I would kind of be gutted if because someone's
Same.
gonna lose. Like,
Well, and you know what scares me the most is we saw unbelievable triple threat last year night 2. Gunther,
yes,
McIntyre, and Sheamus.
yeah,
If it's Gunther, Sammy, and Gable, I'm not really sure how we get not the same result.
no, yeah, it'll be a completely
Yeah.
different match, wouldn't it? It would be a
But I think the same result, Gunther retains again,
yeah.
is what
Yeah.
makes sense. And that's where it's not that I don't want the triple threat thing, but what I definitely can't ever see is Gable pinning Sammy or Sammy pinning Gable to end Gunther's reign. Gunther needs to be pinned in the middle of the ring to end this reign.
Yeah.
And that is another obstacle just to get around.
Could it be Priest? Is he going to use his briefcase to beat Gunther? Because
if we
with
go
anybody,
back
I'm
to
not
back
against it.
cash-ins on mid-card titles, though,
I agree, but with Gunther, it almost doesn't feel like a mid-card title.
no,
back anymore.
no. Gunther
as
has
soon
made
as-
the title.
I think as soon as he drops it, it is again.
Well,
But I
right.
think actually using that briefcase to cash in on Gunther,
see, I think it devalues the briefcase because it
yeah,
devalues the
maybe.
title right away.
It does.
We'll all see that parallel. Is the problem
Mm.
because I love the idea on paper. In execution is where I think we might get a different reaction, right? Where
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
on paper, it makes a ton of sense. I feel terrible for Priest. Priest should be inserted into this world title picture at some point. Like, what are we doing here? And with the
Yeah.
tag belts, it's constipated the tag division. Is the frustrating part.
Yeah.
too,
Not
because
for a lack of good solid tag teams.
no,
That's,
it's
I
good.
think that's the irritating thing and frustrating thing is that
Yeah,
there are great tag teams there in the roster at the minute, and that hasn't always been the case.
no,
But there are right now, and it doesn't feel like they're being underutilized because
it's kind of
themselves
stuck
are
on the
used.
Judgment Day.
Yeah, but then I also think of like from the obviously the business, from the top down, you're looking at the airtime and how much more airtime they've got to spare to actually have two separate tag divisions. And I don't think that they've got a great deal of it right now. I think next year when the Netflix deal hits, it might change, but
Absolutely,
you actually see in segments last night, people are actually getting cut off.
100%.
Like
Yeah.
JD, when he was talking to Pierce, actually got cut off.
Cut
You didn't
off.
hear what he
Right.
said. So airtime isn't something they've got a great deal of. So to then split the tag belts, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Let's talk about our last subject though, of the evening, the main event last night. Let's talk about McIntyre and Jey Uso. I thought we have Jay Jimmy open all of Mania weekend, night 1. Jay Jimmy, let's get it out of the way, right? The 1 and 2 in the Rumble.
Yeah.
Hard to do so when we're not seeing them face to face every week. We can make as many yeet and no yeet t-shirts as we'd like, but I would also like them to maybe, I don't know, trash talk each other a little bit, like actually interact. This was about Drew McIntyre wrestling the best available guy and going over, which I love. Drew deserves it, and I am very excited for Drew Seth, but I'm also very confused. What's going on here? Jordy, talk to me about it. Like, what are we doing?
I don't know. Well, first of all, quick point. What happened to Drew's sword? Like why
Angela, I think he's been leaving it at home.
why when he heel turned, was he like, why are heels not allowed swords? Anyway,
Yeah.
but that's so I think maybe what you're saying about Jay and Jimmy, I think that's the start of it. I think there's probably a good chance that he will then be on the bus to SmackDown with Seth, with Cody, and I think this kind of team of Avengers against the Bloodline is going to start to form. And I think you're absolutely right about opening one of the nights with it, because I think they've got the potential to steal the show wherever them two go.
Yes.
One of the most important things, and we all know this, anybody who's, especially anyone who's trained, is chemistry chemistry in the ring. if two people don't have good chemistry, you can tell it a mile off, and it kind of can't be taught. Some people just are amazing dance partners. Jimmy and Jey Uso will put on an incredible match because they've been doing it their whole life. Like, I wouldn't want to follow them at all. I think put a banger like that on, follow it with a battle royale. I think that's the kind of avenue I would go if I was booking it. Just another thing though, back to the actual match. When was the last time Drew won a match without assistance?
Oh, it's such a good point. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Cody solo took him out. The Elimination Chamber, Logan took Randy out.
Right.
It feels like for the past few Drew victories, and even before that, I think Judgment Day and the build up to Survivor Series, Judgment Day were taking people out, and that was kind of Drew's whole turn, was that he wasn't doing the right thing by taking out the intruders. He would have the pin and take the dub. So yeah, I can't actually remember when the last time Drew hit a pin without actually getting assistance. So that's, as much as I love Drew, I just think it's a strange way to go about it. It's maybe something that Seth's gonna bring up in a promo. But yeah, I'm just like you guys, like you said, Clark. Announce Jey and Jimmy. Just announce it. Give us the graphic. Give us the in the city of brotherly love. They're going. Just give us it, because we all know it's coming, and let's start building it. Stop stalling. And like every time Jey has had an opportunity since he left the bloodline, we all knew Jimmy's going to turn up and ruin it. So it's like we've all been wanting this, so just let it happen now.
Okay, I could not agree more. Coach 23 did add that he did get the clean win against Sammy a few weeks ago, but I mean, to your point, Jordy, like it has been a long time since we've seen a stretch of that's not been the case. And I mean, this whole thing is interesting because I feel like part of the issue is we've had the brand split in the past. We've had SmackDown and Raw. We've had separate rosters. We've had all of it. And we have some of our big rivalries being cross-promotional, and we know we are not going to get advancement in them, but the wrestlers are still working in other positions.
Yeah.
So Jey Uso is here, and we know it's Jey and Jimmy. We know it is. That's what they're building towards. Yeah. It's been teased enough times. Jay's still taking the loss to Drew in the middle of the ring. Last thing we want is 50-50 booking. Josh, I got to ask you your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's got to be I think there's got the build to this has to be pushed ASAP because we really don't have that much time left. But then again, it's Jey Uso, it's Jimmy Uso. Everyone knows them. We've known them forever. Everyone loves them. Even I don't want this to happen, but even with a 1 week build, they can make the match would still be unbelievable and they would make headlines. It really wouldn't matter that much, but I do agree. I do want a big build to this match if possible. So they got to get that started ASAP. And again, another point I just thought about, like, what better way to have, I just thought about this, Jimmy versus Jey Uso, brothers in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Yes. So yeah. Little point there. Thought it was funny. But to the match was great. Solid match. Everything you'd expect. Obviously the post match was what caught my attention. And, I know we mentioned this earlier with the opening segment, but I did like the way the match was booked because Rollins showed he was focused on the bloodline. And he wasn't focused on Drew, and Drew capitalized on that. And I think that's important because that's going to be something that they're going to take into account during this Drew versus Seth match. I mean, Seth has to focus on the Roman Reigns and The Rock and then Drew. So I think it was kind of cool that they showed that Seth is really focused on the bloodline and not Drew. And then Drew kind of capitalized with the Claymore last night. And it showed that, I think Drew's going to capitalize on the same kind of thing come Philadelphia WrestleMania 40, and I think Drew's going to take the belts or the belt.
I agree. I think Drew is your world heavyweight champion to open the show on Monday Night Raw. I think that makes the most sense from a booking perspective. That's how we have to get there somehow. But we got to protect Seth too. So I don't know. It is a bit of a conundrum, but yeah, I'm in agreement there. We also had the backstage brawl said greetings to y'all. Greetings to you as well, my friend. Thank you for tuning in. But that does actually bring us to the end of today's show. And I want to thank everybody that tuned in, everybody in the comments. It's been a delightful Tuesday afternoon. And if you're over here in America, UK, I get it. It's going to be in the middle of the night. But if you don't have Tuesday night plans, You do now off the air. 7:15 Pacific, about. That's going to be 10:15 in the East. That's going to be 9:15 Central. That's 8:15 Mountain. That's 4:15 over in Hawaii. And then tomorrow, Wednesday plans, noon Pacific, 8 in the UK, 3 East, 2 Central, 9 Hawaii, and that's 4 a.m. in Manila. Shout out Coach 23. Thank you, everybody that's tuned in. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do. We'll talk to everybody soon. Have an awesome Tuesday on behalf of me, Clark, Josh, and Jordy. Have a good one.